long endeavor, when you look at what Mars had done, and what Jennings had done here in this university, I think Jennings is more well known than Mars, because Mars was the head of the university college, but it was Jennings who was the first vice chancellor of this university from 1942 right up to 1955. But during his career here, starting from 1942 to 1955, until the university was transferred to Peradeniya, he constantly made trips to Peradeniya to inspect the progress of the university building work going on. Unlike the present day, of course, he didn't have a chauffeur to drive his car. He drove his own car and came here, his old Ford Prefect car, and then he probably might have spent the day here or one day more in the weekend and then return to Colombo on Sunday. Now, during these long tours, he not only got the understanding about what was happening here, and also at the same time he saw that the work here is done in such a way that when this university is built up, it will remain here for the benefit of these masses for many generations. Now here I would like to say that when the plans were finalized, Jennings was not here because he was still waiting for the ship in England, and university architects came here, visited the site, and then drew up the plans. But when he went through the plans, he was not happy about certain suggestions made by the university architect. There are three important things. Again, these details are found in the documents published. Three important things that he insisted. One, the university convocation hall, he said, is not at all sufficient to accommodate the growing university students, and therefore he suggested that the university convocation hall to be expanded. As was said before, this is the project that did not come through. But where we are having the convocation now, the gymnasium is a later addition to the university when Shirley de Alvis, the PWD architect who was responsible for the university constructions here, passed away in 1952, and then of course Mr. Wyn Jones became the university architect. And it is his suggestion was to shift airplane hangar that was at Wayangoda to be shifted here for the use of the university. And it is that hangar that we are now using as a gymnasium. And then, if I go back to what was happening about Jennings's suggestions, there were two other suggestions. The second suggestion was that this building where we are speaking today to be enlarged, because when these plans were contemplated in 1922, they never envisaged such a large university. And they had a small lecture theatre here, and he said, no, this lecture theatre is not sufficient. We want to have a larger theatre here so that the students could assemble here. But you can see today, from what Professor Pieris said, now he based this lecture theatre for his speech, because all the important functions in the university have taken place in this university. Even today, I think, year after year, the Vice Chancellor is addressing the new students in this theatre. But I can add a little more information about this institution, because when I went through what Mr. Alvis has established, somewhere in 1955, Mr. Sundaralingam, who is so well known, was asking a question in the parliament, asking the minister to give how much money has been spent for the university halls or residence, and then how much money has been spent for the equipment. Now the minister replies, and he says, approximately 5 million rupees has been allocated for developing the university. When you look at today's money values, what is 500, sorry, yes, 5 million rupees to develop the university. I think even, with that money you can't even develop a road, I think, a few kilometers of road. But that was the value of the rupee at that time. And then, of course, he has also given a breakdown of the money that has been used for each of these buildings, including the Arts Block, Senate building, and this building. And of course, when all that is added, it is not 5 million, it is less than that. And then, of course, the other most important thing that Jennings suggested, his third request was, he said, the library had been planned to accommodate 100,000 books. He said, a library with 100,000 books is not good enough even for a college library, and it is not at all good enough for a university. He said it should be increased to 400,000. But of course the plans have been set and building operations have begun, and the space that has been allocated to the library cannot be changed. Then Jennings said, well, in that case, you build the extra space up. That is how the 4-storied library became the 7-storied library today. But most of these stories are not known by many persons, but unfortunately there have been a lot of unnecessary criticism about what Jennings did in the university system. But again, as already indicated, little knowledge is dangerous than having no knowledge at all. And apart from that, what matters is not knowledge, but wisdom. Because if wisdom is there, I don't think the present day problems that are happening in the university setup will be ever spearheaded by the students, because in the other countries, the students are scared that the university will stop their coming to lectures because they might, when they fail to pay their fees. It is only in our country that the students, of course, go on strike and then refuse to attend lectures. Now, this is something that I have to say in this assembly, and I think the wisdom will prevail not only among students, even others. There is another aspect I would like to stress, that is the university, that I said is a magnanimous university library, but of course it doesn't have a long history. It was started in 1925 when the first librarian, Mr. R.S. Enright, was recruited in 1925. When he was recruited, he was just a raw graduate. He was not a librarian. But of course, we must be grateful to Mars for appointing the first librarian with suitable qualifications. He was a person with a first class in classics, and of course, he was a talented person. He was sent abroad, given a training in librarianship. He came back and he took the job very seriously. And then he, in fact, is the person who started the library catalogue that is prevailing today. Dewey Decimal Classification was a novelty at that time. That was introduced to Sri Lanka by Enright. And some of the Enright had only one clerk. The entire library staff consisted of the librarian and his clerk. But you need not be so surprised about it, because the university college, the entire college had only 2 clerical hands and 4 professors and 5 visiting lecturers when it began in 1921. But the job that was given to Enright was taken very seriously. Even today you can find, when you go through the card catalogue, the handwriting of Enright. He wrote the catalogue cards with his own handwriting. You know, in the catalogues, nobody today, of course, has ever seen a card written by a librarian because it is typewritten. But they didn't have probably at that time a typewriter to type the catalogue cards. But it is in that setup. The other thing is, the first library allocation in 1925 was 750 rupees. 750 rupees. So you may be wondering how a library with 750 rupees became a national library when it came to about to the present day. The secret behind this is, in fact, collective work that have been carried out by 3 groups, obviously 3 groups. The university administrators, the university vice chancellors who decided the correct policy, and also the university benefactors who donated many important materials to the university library, and the work of the academic university librarians who carried out their work with precision and at the same time with dignity. So I think we should take this opportunity to remember the first university librarian, Mr. Enright, who passed away in 1952, immediately after shifting the library to Peradeniya. Now, he made all arrangements to transport materials from Colombo to Peradeniya, came to Peradeniya. He was supervising the unpacking of materials. But for your information, I would like to say the library did not open up in the present main library premises, but it opened up in the ground floor of the arts building. The entire ground floor of the arts building was the temporary library in 1952. And while he was supervising the work, he collapsed and he was taken to hospital and he died. Jennings mentions that the biggest calamity of the transfer of the university from Colombo to Peradeniya is the loss of Enright. But the interesting thing is, it was scheduled to open the library on 6th of October, and the library opened because he had made all arrangements to open the library. Although the librarian was not there, the library opened at the scheduled time. And this indicates their dedication to work. And the other most interesting thing is, when the library was completed in 1960, the materials were taken to the present building. And then, of course, when you talk about the benefactors, it must be remembered that our library started not with that 750 rupees that was allocated, but with the collection donated by Sir Ponnambalam Arunachalam. The collection belonged to his son, who went to England for further studies, but died all of a sudden after his coming back to Sri Lanka, and he decided to donate this valuable collection to the university. So in 1925, when the library was started, it was started with the collection that was given by, used by his son, Padmanabha. To honor this valuable event, this young person's portrait was in our library in the acquisitions room. And now the acquisition room has been converted to a museum. I hope the librarian has taken sufficient care to see that this portrait will be there, because that reflects the founder collection of this library. But when you look at the collections, now the well-known Rhys Davids, who in fact translated into English the Tripitaka before it was translated into Sinhala, was the government agent Hambantota when he first came to know what Pali language is. And he created an interest in Pali, and after his going back to England, he started the Pali Text Society. Now, I don't like to talk very much about this subject because our professor of Pali and Buddhist studies is here, and now I am just barging on to his subject area. But what I would like to say is his enthusiasm was the key factor that made Pali an internationally known language. But his personal collection was donated to this library by his wife, who was also equally an erudite scholar, somewhere around 1930s. That is how this library grew up, Pandita Batuantudave collection, and various other collections that came to the library. Even today, some of these collections are in the lending shelves. I mean, it would be a great opportunity for a person to touch a book that has been used by Rhys Davids. I mean, those who know the value of the work done by Rhys Davids is so great. But of course, still in our library, we are having them in the lending shelves. Now, this brings me to the next question, the space in the library. Now, when the library was originally planned, it was planned by Jennings for, I said, 4,000 books. But the library did not develop in the way that he planned. Because when the university was shifted here, the faculties developed at various locations, and the number of faculties has now developed to 8. When I left, it was 7. And then there was the absolute necessity for the faculty libraries to be developed. And with this, yes, now I have been asked to finish in 5 minutes. But the most important thing is, now with this, we know that although the library did not develop in the way it was planned, but the main library is the center of the library administration, and the main library is having terrific problems with regard to space. The materials available in the library cannot be properly put to the readers because the space is not sufficient. So I would urge that the university should take the most important work that the university has to do for the library, the next most important work, to provide additional space in the main library. When I left, of course, plans were prepared for a additional building behind the library, but I don't know what has happened to that. The soil testing was done, the plans were brought to the library, and quite a lot of time has gone, mainly because the delay that time, I think the present two Vice Chancellors who are here know, that the delay was mainly at that time, the priority was to develop the Faculty of Medicine buildings. But of course, it went back, and that is how it happened. Now, finally, I would like to say that Jennings saw that the important buildings in this library, in this university, got the names of persons who actually contributed to build up this university. Now, even for Mars, there is a hall that has been named as Mars Hall. But for Jennings, of course, in the recent past, when the university tried to name a hall under his name, there were some problems as reported in the newspapers. But my feeling is, when we consider the contribution of Jennings to this university, naming a hall by his name is not sufficient. I would feel, that is my personal view, that the main library, which became a 7-storied building when it was originally planned for 4 stories, should be named Sir Ivor Jennings Memorial Library. Only those people who know the background to this whole story will agree to it, but there may be certain persons who might disagree. So with that remark, I think before the 5 minutes lapse, I would like to thank Mr. Alvis for his effort and also for bringing these valuable materials before the masses. But the 5-volume set, I think, should sit in a library, not in a home shelf, which would be used constantly by one person once in a while. But they are ideal for use in a library. As I just had a brief discussion with the Deputy Vice Chancellor, a book of this nature, of course, cannot be published by a commercial publisher. This is what I told Mr. Alvis when he indicated to me that he is willing to get this book published. So I am so happy that the publication committee of this university has taken the initiative to publish this. It doesn't indicate just what this Peradeniya University has done to this university. It indicates the background in which the university education was established in this country and the considerations that have been taken into account by the political persons, by the intelligent persons, by the academics, and quite a lot of others in this country. But today we know when certain decisions are taken, they are taken by only a handful and the others are expected to follow these decisions. That's not the correct way to promulgate or to put into effect the decisions taken. So I would again thank the Vice Chancellor and Deputy Vice Chancellor for giving me the opportunity to address you, and it is quite nice to see our old friends and academic colleagues who are sitting in front of us, and also the university academic and non-academic members of the university. So I take the liberty to wind up my brief talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Senadira. Your proposal will be brought to the notice of the proper authorities, committees in the university, and we'll see how it goes from there. Ladies and gentlemen, if you go through the Sir Ivor Jennings' writings, there were 4 things that this university, after 60 years, has not been able to achieve. Most of it's related to, not to the necessarily to the quality of our teaching and all that, but specific activities. Ivor Jennings dreamt of Peradeniya having an archives and a museum at Peradeniya. We have not yet been able to fulfill that until today. Today, after this event, we will all go to the library, which eventually will also become a museum, because there are now plans underway to construct a much larger building, not adjacent to the existing library, but within the central area of the university, where all the books will go and the technical services will be provided there, and this great building that you mentioned will actually become another museum. In addition to that, Dr. Jayantha Dhanapala knows very well, he is a member of one of our trustees, which is to build an art gallery and museum. And today, the art gallery museum, the first part of it, the very first phase of it is completed, and we have devoted that today, the first event, to be an exhibit of Sir Ivor Jennings. After we go to the library, you are all invited to go to the where the art gallery and the museum is. We will declare open it, Vice Chancellor and our other special guests. The third thing which Ivor Jennings has been mentioned for a long time, and he laments when he came back to Peradeniya, that we have not been able to, this university has not been able to build the convention hall. Ladies and gentlemen, we are glad to say that the Peradeniya University, in collaboration with the government of Sri Lanka, will be building the largest convention center within the university premises that will house 4 times the number of people who are the seats available in this room. It will be built next to the Faculty of Allied Health Sciences in this empty land that we have had. The university has had plans to do that. So now this will become a reality, within the next couple of years. The last dream that Ivor Jennings, I think it's better that I read it from his own words, which Peradeniya University has not been able to do in the way that he wanted it to be. We have other ways of doing it, but not successfully. Perhaps today is a good time for us to revisit this statement and see what we can do. We all can be part of it as well. Let me read from his. The endowment nearest my heart, however, is the Peradeniya Fund. We don't have something called Peradeniya Fund in this university, which caused this book to be written. This is the book, not Candy Road, but Road to Peradeniya, once again edited by the former librarian Ian Gunathilaka. Those of us who are members of ancient universities and colleges know how, through the gift of centuries, they have been enriched. We need sculptures and pictures for our main buildings and our halls of residence. We need works of art of all kinds for the museum and manuscripts and rare books for our library. We need trophies for our competitions, plates for our dining halls, and objects of beauty throughout our building. We may even want trees and flowers for our gardens and shady walks for upkeep of Peradeniya Park at the standard of the Royal Botanical Gardens. I see Cyril here. Some may prefer to give direct to the halls of residence, particularly as a memorial to those whose names have been commemorated: Sir Ponnambalam Arunachalam, Sir Baron Jayathilaka, Dr. Robert Mars, Sir James Pieris, Sir Marcus Fernando, and Sir Ponnambalam Ramanathan. With the constructions of the new 7 residential halls, some other names will be added to this very soon. We have deserved well of the people of Ceylon. There must be many too who would like to forward the higher education of women by gifts to Hilda Obesekara Hall and Sangamita Hall. All such contributions in money or in kind will be held in trust for the object which the donor has in view. Still there is no need, now this is Ivor Jennings saying, still there is no need for me to beg